Please let us know. Now let's start with the story. Fiancée wanted to explore feelings for her longtime crush, so I put her right where she belongs. All right, here's how it all started. And trust me, this isn't something I expected to be dealing with at 22, especially after 3 years with someone I thought I'd marry. My fiancée, Julie, 21, and I had been together since we were practically kids. We grew up side by side through all those firsts, all those milestones. We got engaged just last year, and honestly, I thought we were solid. I mean, we weren't perfect, who is? But I believed we had the kind of relationship where we were always honest with each other. Or at least I was. So it all kicked off last November. Things had felt a bit off lately, but I brushed it off. Work stress, life stress, that sort of thing, no big deal, right? But then I started noticing she'd been talking to this guy Michael. Close enough that the name rang a bell. I knew a bit about him from her past. He was someone she'd liked way back before we got together. I'd even met him once at a friend's party. Didn't think twice about it then. Yeah, maybe I was a little uncomfortable with the idea of her talking to an old crush, but I'm not the jealous guy type. So I just shrugged it off. At first, it seemed harmless. She'd show me her phone sometimes and laugh about something funny he'd said. He sent this meme. Look, she'd say, shoving her phone toward me. I'd glance at it and smile. Yeah, that's pretty good, I'd say, trying to sound relaxed even though there was a little twinge in my gut. It was like, okay, cool. He's just an old friend, right? But then things started changing. I felt like I was on the outside looking in. She'd go out of her way to bring him up in random conversations, even when it made zero sense. So, what do you want to do for Halloween this year? I asked one afternoon. She paused, then went, Michael loves Halloween. He's always into those haunted house things. Isn't that funny? I just stared for a second, trying to process. Okay. Anyway, the weirdness escalated. I noticed she was on her phone a lot more, especially when we were together. That wasn't like her. Normally, she'd leave her phone somewhere in another room, totally unbothered. Now it was glued to her hand, her thumbs flying. And whenever I asked who she was talking to, she'd get a little defensive. Hey, who you texting? I tried to keep it casual. Just friends, she shot back, way too quick. Okay, no big deal, I'd say, but something about her tone, the way her eyes darted away, didn't sit right. One night, she came up to me all excited. Hey, she said, practically bouncing, let's watch this new show on Netflix. It's supposed to be really good. I didn't feel like arguing, so I went along. Sure, what's it called? She rattled off the name, and I shrugged. Okay, sounds fine. We settled in on the couch, and I tried to let my guard down. Honestly, the show was actually decent. Fast forward a few days. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling on my phone, trying to unwind, when she got up to grab a snack and left her phone next to me. That was rare lately, and I don't know what got into me. Maybe it was the tension, maybe it was that gnawing feeling in my gut, but I picked it up. The screen was still on. Notifications right there in the open. I couldn't help myself. I tapped into her messages, and there he was, Michael, talking to her about that exact show we'd just started watching together. My heart stopped. Wait, she started watching that show because he recommended it? It might sound stupid, but it felt like someone had knocked the wind out of me. That show felt like our thing, something we'd discovered together. And here I was, finding out it was their thing. She didn't even tell me he'd suggested it. Just acted like she'd found it on her own. I shook my head, feeling sick. How did I miss this? I scrolled up a bit more. That's when it hit me even harder. These weren't catching up messages, not harmless friend stuff. She was sending him selfies, mirror shots of her in different outfits, one she'd wear to work. Posing, smiling, even playful ones with her hair done up. Since when does she even take these? I didn't even know she took that many selfies, let alone sent them to him. Then, like a punch to the gut, I saw a picture she'd sent him, a photo of the two of us carving pumpkins together a couple of weeks back. I didn't even know she'd snapped a picture of us like that. She'd captioned it. Look at us being cute. My throat went dry. That moment was supposed to be ours. It was like she'd handed him a front row seat to our life, our memories, things that should have belonged just to us. I put the phone down for a second, breathing hard, trying to convince myself I was reading too much into it. Maybe it's innocent, maybe she's just sharing. But deep down, it felt wrong. It felt like a betrayal, even if nothing physical had happened. But then it got worse. I started noticing she was glued to her phone constantly, even during the day at work, texting nonstop. When she was home with me, she'd sometimes set her phone on Do Not Disturb. I'd asked once, trying to play it cool, hey, why's your phone on silent all the time now? She barely looked up. Oh, I just don't want to be interrupted while we're hanging out. That was a lie. I could feel it. She was hiding him, but doing it just subtle enough to make me doubt myself. Then came the night that really shattered me. She'd gone to bed early because she had a morning shift. I was sitting there alone, trying to watch TV, trying to calm down, but I couldn't shake the unease. Finally, I cracked. I picked up her phone again, unlocked it, went straight to her messages. That's when I saw it. A message from Michael. It's in your court now. I just stared at those words, my brain spinning. What the hell does that mean? It took me a second to piece it together. He's telling her he has feelings for her. He's waiting for her to decide. Waiting for her to make a move. My heart sank. And her reply? She didn't tell him he was out of line. Nope. She didn't shut him down. She said, "Oh wow, that's a lot to take in. I need to figure out what I'm doing here." I swear, my stomach did this sick flip when I read that. The worst part? She took a screenshot of that message, and sent it to her best friend with a caption that said, "What do I even do?" Like she was actually considering it. Like she was really weighing whether she should go for him. I sat there holding her phone, and all I could think was, how did we even get here? Look, I get that relationships can be messy, that everyone sometimes wonders what if about a person from their past. But this was different. She wasn't just wondering, she was actively talking to him, sharing moments from our lives, keeping him updated like he was some kind of backup plan in case things didn't work out with me. I kept thinking about all the little signs I'd ignored, all the weird comments she'd made, all the random times she'd brought him up, and how I'd brushed it off because I didn't want to be that guy, paranoid, insecure, controlling. But maybe I should have been paying closer attention. The next morning, I couldn't even look at her. I was angry, hurt, confused, all at once. She was just acting normal, getting ready for work like nothing was wrong. She glanced at me and smiled. "You want some coffee?" she asked, pulling a mug from the cabinet. I couldn't even answer. I just shook my head, avoiding her eyes. "Okay, suit yourself," she said, pouring coffee for herself like it was any other morning. I watched her move around the kitchen, so casual, humming under her breath. And I couldn't. It was like I was seeing her in a whole new light, and I didn't like what I was seeing. That whole day, it was all I could think about. Those texts played on repeat in my mind. Her voice, her laugh, every moment we'd shared recently. I kept wondering how much of it was even real. Had she been thinking about him this whole time? Was I just a placeholder? I didn't have answers. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. By the time she got home that evening, I was a wreck. I didn't even know if I was ready to confront her, but I had to. There was no way I could keep holding all of this inside. So I sat there, waiting for her to walk through the door, rehearsing what I'd say, trying to plan how to get it all out, even if it meant things would get ugly. Even if it meant it was the end of everything we'd built together. Things really took a turn after that. Let me tell you, it was nothing like I expected. I mean, I'd known my fiancée for 3 years. We'd been through so much together. I thought we knew each other inside and out. But what I learned in the next few hours flipped everything on its head. She walked in from work, all casual, acting like it was just another day. "God, it was so busy," she said, dropping her bag by the door. "You would not believe how many people came in at once. It was insane." She was talking about her shift, just normal stuff, but I wasn't really listening. I was just stewing over everything. I saw everything on her phone. My head was spinning, my heart pounding, and I couldn't focus on a single thing she was saying. It was like her voice was just background noise, fading in and out, while my brain replayed those messages over and over. She must have noticed something was off because she stopped mid-sentence, frowning at me. "Hey," she said carefully, "you okay?" I had to grip the side of the couch to stop my hands from shaking. Part of me wanted to explode right then and there, to throw it all in her face and demand answers. But I forced myself to hold back, swallowing down the anger burning in my throat. I didn't want to look like some crazed boyfriend flipping out over texts. I nodded stiffly. "We need to talk." Those 4 words, no one ever wants to hear them. She looked confused at first, then nervous. I saw her shoulders tense up, and she sat down across from me on the couch, fidgeting with her hands. That told me she already knew. I took a deep breath. "I saw your messages with Michael." Her face drained of color so fast it was like I'd slapped her. I'll never forget that look. Wide eyes, mouth half open, like she'd just seen a ghost. She tried to recover, clearing her throat. "Ethan, it's not what you think, okay? We're just friends, that's all." I raised an eyebrow. "Just friends? Seriously?" "Yeah," she insisted, voice shaky. "We're just catching up, it's nothing serious. I mean, we have history, but it doesn't mean anything anymore." I stared at her, searching her face for a flicker of honesty, anything I could hold on to. Part of me wanted to believe her so badly, but my gut was screaming that she wasn't telling me everything. I leaned forward. "Then why did you share those parts of our life with him? The selfies? The picture of us carving pumpkins?" My voice cracked on that one. "Those were supposed to be ours." She looked away, picking at the hem of her sleeve. "I don't understand why you're so upset," she mumbled. "It was just casual. I didn't actually do anything wrong." The way she was talking, refusing to meet my eyes, made my skin crawl. She was dancing around the truth, giving me half answers, trying to make it sound harmless. I took a breath, steadying myself. "What about the message he sent you?" It's in your court now. What did he mean by that? Her face changed again, her mouth twisting. He was just being flirty, she said, almost too quickly. I didn't take it seriously. I shook my head. Then why'd you screenshot it and send it to your best friend? She flinched like I'd hit her. I don't know, she stammered. I didn't know what to do. So you didn't shut him down? I pressed. You let him say that, and you thought about it. She hugged her knees up toward her chest, staring at the floor. I didn't want to lose what we have, she whispered, but I also didn't want to cut him off completely. I stared at her, stunned. She kept going, voice barely audible. It's complicated. Like that was supposed to make me feel better. I was just sitting there, staring at her, trying to process how she could even call this complicated. In my head, I kept thinking, how is this complicated? You either choose the person you're engaged to, or you don't. There shouldn't be any middle ground here. Then she hit me with a line that just broke something inside me. I didn't think you'd understand, she said softly, her voice almost trembling. That was her excuse. That was why she'd kept everything under wraps. I just blinked at her, stunned. You didn't think I'd understand. I repeated, my voice barely steady. She bit her lip and nodded. You didn't even give me the chance. I shot back, shaking my head. Yeah, maybe I wouldn't have been thrilled to hear you were reconnecting with a guy you used to have feelings for, but I would have listened. I would have tried to understand if you'd just been honest with me. But this? Hiding things, sneaking around, pretending everything was fine? That wasn't honesty. That was protecting herself, keeping him in her life without having to face any consequences. At that point, I didn't even know what I was trying to salvage anymore. It felt like everything I thought we had was slipping through my fingers, like she'd already made her choice and I was just the last one to figure it out. I took a shaky breath and looked straight at her. Are you really telling me there's nothing more to this? I asked. She hesitated, way too long. Her eyes darted away, her hands twisting together, before she finally forced out, no, there's nothing more. But I couldn't shake the feeling she was still holding back. Her words didn't match her face, and her body language was a mess. I've always been pretty good at reading people, and everything about her was screaming she's hiding something. But she'd made up her mind to stick to her story, to keep playing the it's all innocent card. I sat back, exhausted. Look, I told her, voice low, I need some time to think. I don't want to make some snap decision just because I'm angry or hurt. She didn't interrupt. Honestly, I went on, I feel blindsided right now. I'm going to stay at my parents' place for a few days, clear my head. She didn't even try to stop me. That was the part that cut the deepest. She didn't ask to come with me, didn't even beg me to stay or talk it out more. She just nodded, almost like she was relieved. Okay, she said. Just that, okay. That night, I packed a bag in silence, barely able to look at her. I walked out without her saying another word, got in my car, and headed toward my parents' place. The whole drive over, my mind wouldn't stop spinning. I kept going over everything, every sign I'd missed, wondering if I was partly to blame for not seeing things sooner. We'd been together for so long, I thought. I really believed we were in this together. Now I was questioning every memory, every moment we'd shared over the past few months. Had she been drifting away this whole time? And if she had, why didn't she just tell me? That entire night, I lay awake in the dark, replaying every conversation, every glance, every tiny moment between us. I started thinking back to all the small changes I'd ignored, the way she'd gotten more secretive with her phone, how she'd started going out with her friends more often, and how she'd suddenly gotten into new interests. I didn't even know about half the stuff she'd gotten into. It was like she'd been slowly building this whole separate life right in front of me, and I'd been too trusting, or maybe too naive, to see it. And you know, maybe a part of me was still clinging to the hope that there was something worth saving. That maybe if we just talked it out, went to counseling, did whatever it took, we could rebuild the trust. But as the hours went by, that hope started to fade. Because the more I thought about it, the more it felt like I was the only one holding on. The only one actually fighting for something that maybe wasn't even there anymore. The next day, I was completely wrecked, physically, mentally, everything. I was supposed to go to work, but I couldn't even face it. I called in sick and just lay there, my mind still stuck on her, on those texts, on that gut feeling that I hadn't even scratched the surface of what was really going on. By the end of that day, I knew I'd have to go back and confront her again. But this time, I wasn't going to let her dodge around it, or hide behind half-truths. I needed the truth, all of it. Because if there was one thing I was sure of, it was that I couldn't move forward with her until I knew everything. So after spending a few days away at my parents' place, letting things settle in my head, I drove back to the apartment. When I walked in, she was there, sitting on the couch, almost like she'd been waiting for me. I could see she looked nervous as hell, hands folded tight, eyes flicking toward me, and then away again. That just confirmed what I'd been feeling all along. She knew I wasn't coming back to smooth things over. I dropped my bag, took a breath, and sat across from her. She shifted in her seat, biting her lip. I looked her straight in the eye. We need to talk again, I told her, steady as I could manage. And this time, I need the truth. All of it. She swallowed hard and tried to start up with the same tired script she'd given me before. Ethan, I swear, she said, voice a little too rehearsed. It wasn't anything serious. We were just reconnecting as friends, that's all. I stared at her, my jaw tight. Friends? After everything I'd seen? I wasn't buying it. I told her straight up, I wasn't looking for excuses or half-baked explanations this time. I wanted the truth. Exactly what had gone on with Michael, and why she'd let things get so far, to the point where he thought he could tell her his feelings were in her court. She looked like she was about to crawl out of her own skin, squirming in her seat, hands fidgeting, eyes darting around the room like she was searching for the right words, or maybe just the words that would make her look the least guilty. She couldn't meet my eyes. That alone was enough to twist the knife in my gut. Usually, she was the type to stand her ground, to argue if she thought she was right. But now, she looked like a kid who'd just been caught with her hand in the cookie jar. Finally, she let out this shaky breath and mumbled, okay, maybe I let things go too far emotionally. Too far? I asked, my voice cold. Define too far. She kept staring down at her hands. I got caught up in the attention, she whispered. I didn't realize how much it would hurt you. I clenched my fists. The way she was talking, so hesitant, it was obvious there was more. Way more. Stop dancing around it, I snapped. No half-truths. No dodging. I want everything. Right now. She went quiet. Dead quiet. Then she sighed, a long, heavy sigh, and looked up at me just for a second before dropping her eyes again. I saw him in person a few times, she finally admitted, voice barely audible. My chest tightened. In person? Yeah, she said, swallowing hard. Just for coffee. I let out a bitter laugh. Coffee. Right. If I was naive, maybe I'd believe that. But something inside me knew she was only giving me the smallest piece of the truth, trying to test the waters to see how much I'd tolerate. I stared her down. Did anything physical happen? She froze. For a second, just a second too long, she went completely still, like a statue. Then she nodded, barely looking at me. It kind of happened, she mumbled, like that was supposed to soften the blow. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. It kind of happened. I repeated, my voice flat, trying not to lose it. She winced. It was just one time. She tried to explain. I swear, Ethan. Just once. Like that was supposed to make me feel better. I couldn't even process it. Here I was, putting every ounce of my energy into trying to salvage something, trying to cling to even a sliver of honesty in this mess. And she'd crossed the line, not just emotionally, but physically. What? I demanded, my voice cracking. Why would you do this? We were supposed to be planning our future together. We had everything laid out. What changed? She wiped at her eyes, her shoulders slumping. I was confused, she said. I felt like I'd lost a part of myself, and reconnecting with Michael, it gave me back that peace. She went on, voice breaking. I never meant to hurt you, Ethan. I didn't think it'd go this far. Hearing her say all that made me feel like the biggest idiot on earth. All those little signs I'd brushed off, every single time she'd been vague or ducked out of talking about Michael, it all clicked right into place, like puzzle pieces I'd been too blind to see. I'd trusted her, trusted us, and she took that trust and threw it straight in the trash. While I'd been out here planning our life together, looking at wedding venues, thinking about buying a house, picturing a future, she'd been stepping out with someone else, letting him into parts of her heart, her world, that should have belonged to us. I tried to keep my composure, but I could feel this pressure building in my chest, like a bomb ready to go off. I thought we were in this together, I told her, trying to steady my voice, even though it was shaking. I thought we were building something real. She didn't even look at me, just stared at the floor. I could see the guilt on her face, sure, but it meant nothing to me. Because guilt after you get caught? That's not real remorse. That's fear. That's damage control. If I hadn't found those messages, she would have kept going. Kept hiding behind those fake smiles and those I love yous. I swallowed, hard, trying to keep my voice from cracking. Do you even care about us anymore? I asked her. Or was this just some kind of game to you? She opened her mouth but couldn't get anything out, finally stammering, I was confused. I made a mistake. I shook my head, disgusted. No. I snapped. A mistake is forgetting to grab milk on your way home. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. You chose this, fully aware of what it could do to us. She flinched, but I didn't care. I was done pulling my punches. Finally, I couldn't listen to any more of her half-baked excuses. I took a breath and said flatly, if you want to be with him, then go. I'm not going to sit here while you decide if I'm worth it. Her eyes went wide. No, Ethan, please. I want to fix things, she begged, voice trembling. I'll do whatever it takes, I swear. I'll cut him off. I'll go to therapy, I raised my hand, cutting her off. Save it, I told her. I can't trust you. Not anymore. I stood up and headed for the bedroom, throwing clothes into a bag as quickly as I could. My mind was on fire, my hands shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone. She didn't try to stop me this time. She just stood there, arms wrapped around herself, looking absolutely crushed. I could feel her eyes on me, like she wanted to say something but didn't even know where to start. I zipped up the bag and slung it over my shoulder. I wasn't going to listen to one more apology. On my way to the door, I heard her voice behind me, small and broken. I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I didn't even turn around. Her apologies were worthless at that point. I was done with the lies, done with the secrets, done with the half-truths that burned through everything we'd built. I walked out, shut the door behind me, and went down to my car. I sat there for a while, just breathing, trying to process everything. I could still hear her voice in my head, replaying all the things she'd said, over and over, stuck like a bad song I couldn't turn off. And I just kept thinking, how did I not see this coming? All the red flags had been right there, but I'd ignored them, because I wanted to believe in us. I wanted to believe that what we had was real, that it was something worth fighting for. But driving away that night, I swear I felt more alone than I ever had in my entire life. This was the person I'd built my world around, the person I thought I'd spend forever with. And now it felt like all those years, all those memories, had just shattered in an instant. So after I left the apartment, I spent a couple more days at my parents' place, trying to clear my head. But no matter how many times I ran it through in my mind, I still couldn't believe she'd actually crossed the line, not just emotionally, but physically. Everything we'd been building for years felt like it was collapsing right in front of me, and I was stuck trying to sort out what had been real and what had been a lie. Then another thought hit me, like a punch to the gut. I started thinking about how she'd been leaning on me financially all this time. Sure, she worked part-time, pitched in here and there, but let's be real, I'd been the one holding up the whole structure. I'd helped her get a reliable car, which was technically still in my name. I'd co-signed for our apartment, because her credit was shot. I'd been the one covering most of our bills since the day we moved in together. And now, seeing the full picture, it felt like I'd been her safety net, while she kept this whole other secret life going behind my back. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Because it wasn't just about Michael anymore. It was about how dependent she'd been on me for everything. She didn't have a ton of family support. Her friend circle was basically mutual friends or people who'd drifted away. I'd been her anchor for years. And now she'd thrown me away for some guy who probably couldn't even give her half of what I'd provided. When I decided to go back to the apartment to grab more of my stuff, I braced myself for whatever scene might be waiting. Sure enough, as soon as I opened the door, there she was. She looked awful, dark circles, puffy eyes, like she hadn't slept in days. For a second, a twisted part of me thought, good, maybe now she realizes what she's lost. But I shoved that thought aside. I wasn't going to feel sorry for her. She'd done this to herself. The second she saw me, she jumped right into apology mode. Ethan, she blurted out, voice cracking, please, can we talk? I've been thinking about everything, and I'm so sorry. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. I didn't say anything, just started walking past her, heading for the bedroom to grab my things. She followed right behind me, her words tumbling out fast. I've missed you so much these last few days, she said. I can't believe I let it get this bad. I'm done with Michael, I swear. I blocked him. I want us to go to counseling, to work through this. Please, Ethan. I paused, gripping the zipper of my duffel bag so hard I thought it might break. Counseling. Working through it. All I could think about was how she'd acted before, how she'd stood in front of me acting like nothing was wrong while she was lying straight to my face. It was hard to believe she'd changed. Just because she got caught, that was the only reason she was scrambling now, trying to fix things. I looked her straight in the eye and told her, I'm not buying your promises anymore. If you actually wanted to work on things, you should have thought about that before you started sneaking around behind my back. She gave me this look, all wide-eyed and pleading, like that was supposed to make me soften. But I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. I put everything into this. I went on, my voice tight. My time, my money, my commitment. And what did you do? You kept secrets. You played me. She tried to jump in. That's not fair. Ethan, I contributed too. I laughed, cold and bitter. Really? Most of what you had was because of me. I've been paying for our place, covering you when you couldn't afford things, making sure you had what you needed. I've been supporting you this entire time. I could see the guilt hit her, and it was like something snapped inside me. All that, I said, voice breaking a little, and you turned around and threw it away for some guy who probably doesn't even care about you half as much as I did. Her eyes welled up, and she blurted out, I just got lost in the excitement of reconnecting with an old friend. I never thought it would go this far. That line made my blood boil. Old friend. She was still calling him that after everything? I stared her down. How do you justify doing this to the person who's been there for you? Who's been making sure you were okay this entire time? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her face turned red, and she looked away, embarrassed. But I didn't care. I'd had enough. I'm done, I told her flatly. I can't be with someone who would put me in a position like this. She broke down then, actually crying, her shoulders shaking. I know I messed up, she sobbed. But I can't imagine my life without you, Ethan. She tried to reach for me, like she was going to hug me, but I stepped back. I wasn't about to give her that comfort. She didn't deserve it. Through her tears, she started saying, I don't know how I'm going to do this without you. I don't know where I'll go, what I'll do. It was like she was trying to guilt-trip me into staying, hoping I'd feel sorry enough to give her another chance. But all I could think about was how easy it had been for her to betray me, even after everything I'd done for her. If you really cared about us, I told her, voice steady, about me, you would have respected our relationship enough to shut down that whole old friend thing from the very start. She started to cry harder, but I didn't flinch. You've been leaning on me this whole time, I said, but you clearly didn't value what we had. You're just realizing it now because you're about to lose everything that made your life comfortable. And that's the truth. I've been your support system, your rock, the person who made your life stable. And you threw all of that away for some guy who wasn't even willing to commit to you. She just kept going, over and over, saying she was sorry, that she'd learned her lesson, that she'd do anything to prove herself if I just gave her the chance. But I couldn't trust her anymore. I looked right at her, steady as I could manage, and told her, I'm taking my name off the lease. You're going to have to figure out your own place to stay. Her eyes went wide, real panic. Ethan, you can't. I can't afford this place by myself, she stammered, voice cracking. I don't have anywhere else to go. And yeah, maybe on some level that sounded harsh, but I didn't care. I wasn't responsible for her anymore. The more she tried to talk, the more desperate she sounded, rambling about how much she needed me, how she'd be completely lost without me. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't really fighting for me. She was fighting to keep the comfortable life she'd had with me. It was never really about us. Never about love. It was about what I provided, what she was terrified to lose now that she'd burned that bridge. By the end of it, I felt like a weight had finally lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't responsible for her mess. I wasn't going to let her make me feel guilty or tied down anymore. I grabbed the rest of my stuff, double-checking I hadn't left anything behind, and headed for the door. As I turned to leave, she was still calling after me, tears streaming down her face. Ethan, please. I can change, I'll prove it. Just don't leave like this. I didn't even answer her. I was done listening to empty promises. As I drove away, I felt this weird sense of relief wash over me. Yeah, it hurt like hell, and it felt like a betrayal on a level I'd never experienced before, but at least now I knew the truth. At least now, I could finally move forward without wondering if she was lying to my face or hiding something behind her phone. And that's where I left things, her standing there, alone, realizing she'd lost everything because of her own choices. I wasn't about to keep being her safety net. She'd made her bed, and now she'd have to lie in it. All right, here's how it all ended. After I left her at the apartment, I really thought that was going to be the end of it. I was ready to cut my losses, move on, and start fresh. I'd packed my stuff, told her I was done, and as far as I was concerned, that chapter was closed. I didn't expect to hear from her again, not after everything I'd said, not after the way I'd left. But of course, she wasn't going to just let it go that easily. A few days later, she started texting me. At first, I ignored it. I didn't see the point in dragging this out. I was done. I wanted no more of her explanations or excuses. But the messages just kept coming. Long, drawn-out paragraphs about how much she missed me, how she'd made a huge mistake, how she'd do whatever it took to make it right. Honestly, reading them just reminded me of how far she'd pushed things and how much damage had already been done. She must have realized I wasn't going to answer her texts, because then she started calling. I ignored every call. I'd already wasted enough time and energy on her drama, and I wasn't about to get pulled back in just because she was suddenly drowning in regrets. But she wouldn't let up. Every day, another missed call, another text, another voicemail. Finally, after about a week of this, she left a message saying she was outside my parents' place and needed to talk. It felt like she was cornering me, trying to force me to listen. I knew if I didn't deal with it now, she'd just keep showing up wherever I was. So I stepped outside. She was standing there on the driveway, looking rough, like she hadn't slept in days, eyes swollen, hair a mess. The second she saw me, she launched right back into the same routine I'd already seen in all those messages. Ethan, she started, voice trembling, I know I messed up. I'll take full responsibility. I'll do anything to prove myself to you. I swear. Please, please just hear me out. I stood there, arms crossed, stone-faced. You already proved exactly who you are. I told her, my voice calm but cold. Your actions said it all. Nothing you say now is going to change that. She shook her head frantically, tears spilling down her cheeks. I have nowhere else to go, she choked out, voice breaking. For a split second, I felt guilt trying to crawl up my throat, but I shut it down fast. I wasn't the one who'd betrayed trust. I wasn't the one sneaking around and lying. Those were her choices, not mine. You should have thought about that before you did what you did, I told her flatly. She let out this broken sob. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, she said. I swear, Ethan, I never realized how much I needed you until now. But all I could see was someone terrified of the consequences of their own actions, not sorry for what she'd done, just sorry she'd been caught and had to deal with the fallout. And that was not my problem. She kept going, desperate, voice shaking. I need your support. I can't do all of this alone. Then, like it was nothing, she asked, can I just stay with you? Just until I figure things out. She really thought I'd cave, that I'd remember the history we had, all those years I'd been her support, and let her back in. But I wasn't going to be manipulated. I looked her dead in the eye and said, no, you're on your own now. You wanted to keep secrets? Then figure out your life without me in it. She started crying harder, really ugly crying, talking so fast it was barely making sense. I can't make it on my own. I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. Ethan, please. It was like she was throwing out every excuse she could think of just to guilt trip me enough to get back under my roof. But I wasn't budging. I took a step closer so she couldn't mistake my words. You're only here, I told her, because you realized how good you had it. If you actually cared about me, you wouldn't have done any of this in the first place. That finally seemed to break through. Her shoulders slumped, and she just fell apart, crying even harder, mumbling about how she had no idea what to do, how she'd made a mistake. But honestly, I was done feeling bad. She'd made her bed, and now it was time for her to deal with it. I didn't know her anything, not a place to stay, not my sympathy, nothing. Before she left, she tried one last time, voice cracking, reaching for me with those trembling hands. Ethan, please, she whispered, I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I just shook my head. If you really want to change, I told her, then start by being honest with yourself. Look in the mirror and figure out who you are and why you do the things you do. Because this, I didn't mean for it to happen, crap. That's just you dodging responsibility. She lowered her eyes, cheeks flushed in shame, or maybe just regret that her fallback plan was gone. You made your choices, I told her, and now you have to live with them. Alone. She tried to protest, to say something else, but I turned and opened the door, silently telling her to leave. I watched her walk away, shoulders hunched, and a part of me wanted to feel sorry for her, but I didn't. Instead, I felt relief. Yeah, it still hurt. There's no way losing someone you thought you'd spend your life with wouldn't hurt. But letting go of being her safety net, of always having to look out for her, fix things for her, carry the weight of the entire relationship on my shoulders, it felt like setting down a burden I'd been breaking my back to hold up. A few days later, she tried one last time. She sent me a text, a long, drawn-out paragraph about how she'd been reflecting, how she hoped we could still be friends. That one made me laugh, honest to God. Friends? After everything? I didn't even bother replying. I just hit delete, then blocked her number. I wasn't about to let her keep one foot in the door, waiting for the next time her life fell apart so she could come running back. Looking back now, I can see all those red flags I ignored. How she'd always leaned on me financially. How she was constantly needing reassurance and emotional support. I told myself she just needed a little extra help, that we were a team and I was being a good partner. But the truth? She was more interested in what I could give her than actually building a real, equal future with me. It wasn't love. It was convenience. And to everyone who'd warned me, the people who pulled me aside and told me she might not be marriage material, that I was setting myself up for heartbreak, thank you. You were right. I was so sure we were building something solid, so sure about the future I'd pictured with her, that I blinded myself to what was actually happening. But you know what? At the end of the day, I dodged a bullet. And I'm grateful for that. I can move forward now, knowing I didn't settle for someone who didn't deserve me. This whole experience was a hard lesson, about trusting my gut, paying attention to the warning signs, and knowing when to walk away. She can figure out her own path now, just like I'm figuring out mine. And maybe, someday, she'll learn something from this. But honestly, that's not my concern anymore. I've got my own life to live, and I'm finally free to live it without constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering if I'm being lied to. So yeah, that's how it ended. She had nowhere to go, no plan, and no one else to turn to. because she'd burned all her bridges. And me? I'm done looking back. I'm ready to move forward and find someone who values me for real. Here's how things played out after I cut her off for good. A couple weeks went by, and honestly, I was finally starting to breathe again. The constant stress, the second-guessing, the feeling of having to watch over my shoulder, all of it was gone. For the first time in months, I could just focus on myself, on my work, on moving forward. I hadn't heard from her since I blocked her, and that was perfectly fine by me. I was putting it all behind me, or at least trying to. Then one day, I was hanging out with my buddy Chris. We were grabbing a beer, just catching up, when he started acting kind of weird, like he had something on his mind but wasn't sure if he should say it. Eventually he goes, "Man, you're gonna want to hear this." I raised an eyebrow, instantly on guard. "About her?" I asked, already guessing where this was going. He nodded, kind of wincing, like he was bracing for me to blow up. "Yeah, man. Listen, you deserve to know." I took a breath, told him to just spit it out. So he did. Turns out, right after we split, she ran straight to Michael, the same Michael she'd cheated with. They'd spent maybe a week or two together. And hearing that, yeah, it stung for a second, no lie. Even though I was done with her, even though I told myself a million times she wasn't my problem anymore, it still hit me right in the gut knowing she'd jumped right into something with the same guy she'd blown up our lives for. But that sting didn't last long, because Chris kept going, telling me the real twist. Michael? He wasn't in it for the long haul. Apparently, he hooked up with her for a bit, but after a couple weeks, he bailed and went right back to his own girlfriend, just left her hanging, like she was nothing more than a side quest he got bored of. I sat there for a second, taking it in, then just let out this short, kind of bitter laugh. It was messed up, sure, but there was something about it that felt fair. "So let me get this straight," I said, shaking my head. "She torched 3 years with me for a 2-week fling with a dude who wasn't even serious?" Chris nodded, his expression half sympathetic, half disgusted. "Yeah, man. It's messed up." I took another sip of my beer, feeling this weird sense of satisfaction settle over me. Not because I wanted her to suffer, I really didn't, but because it felt like karma, plain and simple. She lied. She cheated. She tried to crawl back when her plan fell apart. And in the end, she got burned. It was like life had handed her exactly what she'd earned. She thought she was running off to some exciting new chapter, chasing those old butterflies or whatever, and instead she got dumped and left alone. I mean, it was crazy to think about. She threw away everything we'd built for a fling that didn't even last 2 weeks. And now, she had nothing. No relationship, no stability, nobody to fall back on. She made her choices, and they finally caught up to her. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.